Most people think spiritual initiation is a ceremony, a ritual performed by a guru, a monk, or a teacher who grants you access to some higher realm. But what if the real initiation has nothing to do with robes, titles, or temples? What if the true initiation is a moment so subtle, so powerful that most people don't even realize when it happens? Or more unsettling, what if it has already happened to you? Tonight, we venture into a mystery hidden beneath centuries of symbolism and spiritual tradition, the real meaning of spiritual initiation. Not the public form, not the ceremony, not the ritual, but the inner transformation that ancient adepts guarded like a sacred flame. Across cultures, across civilizations, across forgotten epochs, there's a recurring idea. Initiation is not something done to you. It is something awakened within you. It is a moment of irreversible clarity, when the life you thought you were living dissolves, and a deeper, more luminous path reveals itself. In this video, we will explore what initiation truly is on an esoteric level, its origins in ancient mystery schools, the deeper philosophical meaning behind the initiation journey, why the process was hidden, and how it continues to shape human consciousness today. We'll pull back the veil on secret rites from Egypt, Greece, India, and the mystical deserts of the Middle East. We'll examine the timeless archetype of the initiated one and uncover why initiation is less about knowledge and more about identity, about who you become once the illusion of limitation begins to fall away. But more importantly, we will uncover how initiation is happening constantly, through dreams, challenges, synchronicities, and moments of inner rupture that force the seeker to shed old versions of themselves. Because the deeper truth is this: you don't wait for initiation, you recognize it. It arrives disguised as crisis, awakening, expansion, or an unexpected shift in awareness. So prepare yourself. This is not a ceremony. This is an unveiling. And once you understand the real meaning of spiritual initiation, you may realize that your journey has already begun and has been unfolding long before you ever knew to look. To understand the real meaning of spiritual initiation, we must travel far beyond the modern idea of ceremonies and into the ancient heart of mystery traditions, those hidden schools of wisdom that shaped the spiritual evolution of humanity for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, initiation was not a ritual performed for status. It was a dramatic inner transformation. The priests of Kem believed that a true initiate was someone who had died before dying, an individual who had confronted the illusion of the physical self and awakened to the immortal essence within. The initiation rite in the Temple of Osiris was not symbolic theater. It represented the cosmic journey of consciousness through darkness into illumination. Cross the Mediterranean into Greece, and you find the Eleusinian Mysteries, perhaps the most famous initiatory rite in Western history. But despite surviving for nearly 2,000 years, almost nothing about the inner experience was ever revealed. Why? Because the transformation was not intellectual. It was an inner encounter with truth so profound that it could not be spoken without being diminished. Initiation there was not about learning secrets. It was about becoming the secret. In the Vedic traditions of India, initiation, Diksha, was understood as a transmission of consciousness. Not a teaching, but a shift in the seeker's inner frequency. It signified the moment when the student was ready to perceive the universe not as a collection of objects, but as a living field of consciousness. The guru did not grant anything. The guru simply recognized and reflected the student's readiness. Meanwhile, in the deserts of the Middle East, the Essenes, Gnostics, and later Sufi mystics preserved teachings that described initiation as an opening of the inner eye, a quiet but irreversible awakening that allowed the seeker to perceive the divine in all things. In every culture, the language differs, the rituals vary, but the underlying truth remains constant. Initiation is a rebirth of perception. It is the moment a seeker steps out of the dream of separateness and glimpses the deeper architecture of reality. But why was this knowledge hidden for so long? Because most people were not prepared to understand it. Initiation is a mirror that reveals your true nature, and not everyone is ready to face that mirror. Ancient teachers protected this process not to create hierarchy, but to prevent misunderstanding. Incomplete knowledge is dangerous, not to society, but to the seeker who mistakes symbols for truth and power for wisdom. Yet in our time, the world is shifting. The veil between the esoteric and the everyday is thinning. People all around the globe are awakening spontaneously, triggered not by rituals but by life itself. The ancient initiations have not disappeared, they have simply changed form. And now, as we move into the next section, we will break down the true mechanics of initiation, what it feels like, how it unfolds, and why it often arrives disguised as crisis, synchronicity, or profound inner calling. To understand what spiritual initiation truly is, we must first dissolve the image of robes, candles, and ceremonial halls. These are outer expressions, useful symbols, but not the essence. The real initiation is something far more intimate, far more unsettling, and far more transformative. Initiation begins the moment your old identity can no longer contain the truth you are waking up to. It often doesn't start with enlightenment. It starts with disruption, a sudden shift in your life path, a collapse of what you thought you knew, a moment where the familiar world becomes strangely hollow or unreal. A whisper inside that says, "There is more, and you are not who you believe you are." This is the crack in the shell, the point at which the deeper self begins to emerge. To make this more accessible, imagine your consciousness as a vast, ancient temple with multiple chambers. Most people live only in the outer courtyard, surrounded by noise, distraction, and the stories they've inherited from society. Initiation is the moment you become aware that there are inner chambers, and that one of them has just opened. You were not invited. You were summoned by life itself. 1. The inner threshold. Initiation always begins with a threshold experience. In myths, this is symbolized by stepping into darkness, crossing a river, or passing through a gate guarded by a mysterious being. But in real life, the threshold is psychological and energetic. It may come as an existential crisis, a profound spiritual experience, an overwhelming synchronicity, a loss that shatters your old beliefs, or an intuitive knowing that feels both foreign and familiar. Whatever the form, one truth remains: you cannot return to who you were before. 2. The dissolution of the old self. Once the threshold is crossed, the seeker enters a phase the ancients called the unraveling. This is the symbolic death found in initiation stories. Not a physical death, but the dissolution of the ego's grip, the collapse of outdated identities, beliefs, and illusions. This stage is uncomfortable by design. Your old worldview cannot survive in the presence of truth. Your old patterns cannot survive in the presence of awareness. Your old self cannot survive in the presence of your emerging essence. This is why initiation was always portrayed as a descent before an ascent. What is being stripped away is not your life, but your illusions. Do the encounter with the self. As you shed the layers of who you thought you were, you encounter something ancient and luminous within you, what mystery schools called the inner teacher, the daemon, the higher self, or the spark of the divine. This encounter is the real initiation. It is the moment you realize you are not merely a personality. You are not limited to your emotions or thoughts. You are not defined by your past. You are consciousness becoming aware of itself. This is why initiates throughout history described a sudden inner clarity, a stillness or a revelatory insight that felt like remembering rather than learning. 4. The reorientation of perception. Once this inner encounter occurs, perception begins to shift. You see the world differently. Patterns you ignored become obvious. You sense meaning in events that once felt random. You notice the subtle pull of intuition guiding you toward alignment. This reorientation is the gateway to deeper levels of initiation. It is not about gaining mystical powers. It is about gaining inner sovereignty, the ability to navigate life from your essence rather than your conditioning. In the next section, we will enter the deeper metaphysics of initiation. the hidden layers, the paradoxes, and why every true initiation contains a secret step that no teacher can perform for you. If the first part of initiation is the unraveling of the old self, the second part is where the true mystery begins. This is where seekers throughout history entered the hidden chambers of the inner temple, where the journey becomes paradoxical, symbolic, and deeply personal. Spiritual initiation is not a single event. It is a cycle, a spiral of awakening, shedding, expanding, and integrating. And within this cycle lie the deeper layers the ancient adepts guarded. 1. The descent into symbol. After the threshold and unraveling, the seeker enters a stage the mystery schools called the descent into symbol. In this phase, life begins speaking to you in a new language, one made of synchronicities, dreams, archetypes, and inner imagery. This is not imagination. This is the subconscious beginning to communicate directly, unfiltered. In myths, the initiate meets guides, guardians, or mysterious figures that seem part human, part symbol. These were never literal beings. They were representations of inner forces, aspects of consciousness that awaken only after the seeker has crossed the threshold. A dream that feels more real than waking life. A sign that appears repeatedly until you can no longer ignore it. A symbol that stirs something ancient in you. These are the currents of initiation working beneath the surface, preparing you for the next stage. 2. The paradox of guidance. One of the greatest mysteries of initiation is the paradox at its heart. The initiate is guided, yet no one can guide them. The initiate is taught, yet no one can teach them. Teachers may appear, gurus, mentors, even strangers who speak a sentence that shifts your entire perspective. But their role is not to give you truth. Their role is to trigger the truth already encoded within you. This is why ancient brotherhoods insisted that the deepest teachings must be discovered, not delivered. A teacher can point to the door, but only you can walk through it. 3. The invisible trial. Every true initiation contains a trial, not a physical challenge, but a challenge of perception. You may be tested through a sudden temptation to return to your old life, a confrontation with fear or insecurity, a powerful illusion that tries to pull you back into unconsciousness, or a sense of isolation that forces you inward. In myths, this trial appears as monsters, labyrinths, or storms. In real life, it appears as doubt. Here is the hidden truth. Doubt is part of the initiation. Doubt is the guardian at the gate of deeper truth. To move forward, the initiate must choose awareness over fear, again and again. 4. The revelation. Once the trial is passed, the seeker receives what the ancients called gnosis, a direct personal realization that no book or teacher could ever give. It may come as a moment of overwhelming clarity, a vision, a sudden understanding of your life's path, or a profound inner peace that feels eternal. This revelation is not the end, it is the turning point. It is the moment the initiate understands. They are not separate from the universe, the divine is not out there, but within consciousness shapes experience, and every challenge was part of the awakening process. The revelation is the inner light igniting. 5. The return to the world. Unlike the stereotypical spiritual story, initiation does not remove you from life. It returns you to life, more conscious, more aware, more aligned. You re-enter the world with new eyes. You see patterns where there was once chaos. You respond consciously where you once reacted instinctively. But there is one final step, one the ancient teachings rarely spoke openly about: integration. Without integration, revelation fades into memory. With integration, revelation becomes identity. True initiation is not about escaping the world. It is about illuminating it from within. Practical application. Spiritual initiation may seem mystical and ancient, but its power is profoundly relevant to modern life. You don't need a temple, a guru, or a formal ceremony to experience initiation. What you need is awareness, the ability to recognize the signs, engage the process consciously, and integrate the transformation into your daily life. Here are the core practices that translate the ancient initiatory path into a living, breathing journey for the modern seeker. 1. The practice of radical presence. Initiation begins with awareness, and awareness begins with presence. Set aside a few moments each day to sit quietly, without distractions, and anchor your attention in the present moment. Feel your breath, your body, the space around you. Notice how your mind shifts. Notice what surfaces. This simple act develops the inner stillness required to perceive the subtle signals that guide the initiatory process. Intuition, synchronicity, inner nudges, and the pull of your deeper self. The more present you become, the more clearly initiation reveals itself. 2. Tracking threshold moments. Initiatory. Thresholds often appear disguised as life events. To recognize them, begin tracking moments that feel like turning points, even if they seem small. Ask yourself, what changed in me during this moment? Did something end or begin? Did my perception shift, even slightly? Thresholds are easy to miss because they rarely come with dramatic fireworks. But when you pay attention, you'll notice they arrive with a quiet, persistent sense of significance, like a doorway you didn't expect to find. 3. Dialoguing with symbols are the subconscious language of initiation. Instead of analyzing them intellectually, experience them. Choose a symbol that feels relevant. A key, a flame, a serpent, a circle, anything. Sit with it. Visualize it. Let it speak in sensations, emotions, images, or insights. Ask, what part of my journey does this symbol mirror? This practice awakens the inner teacher, your instinctive capacity to decode your own path. 4. Embracing the initiatory trial. When a challenge arises, fear, confusion, doubt, or the pull back into old habits, don't run from it. Recognize it for what it is, an initiatory trial. Ask yourself, what belief is being challenged? What old identity is trying to cling to survival? What new version of me is trying to emerge? Trials are not punishments, they're catalysts. Each one is an opportunity to choose awareness over unconsciousness. 5. The discipline of integration. Revelation without integration is like a spark without fuel. To transform insight into identity, practice integration. Journal what you experience. Make small but consistent behavioral shifts. Change one habit that no longer aligns with your evolving self. Take a symbolic action that represents your new direction. Even a simple act, cleaning a space, starting a new routine, letting go of something old, can anchor the energy of initiation into your everyday reality. 6. Creating a personal inner temple. The ancient mystery schools used sacred spaces to support the initiate's journey. You can create your own inner temple by choosing a quiet corner or symbolic object that represents your spiritual path. Whenever you sit there, breathe deeply and ask, what is the next step of my inner unfolding? Over time, this space becomes charged with intention, clarity, and insight. Spiritual initiation is not a one-time event. It is a living cycle unfolding through presence, perception, trial, revelation, and integration. These practices don't just support the journey, they activate it. Spiritual initiation has always carried an air of mystery, etched into temple walls, whispered in myths, woven through ancient teachings. But as we've seen, its real meaning is far more intimate than ceremony or ritual. Initiation is an inner event, a turning of the soul, a moment when awareness pierces through the surface of ordinary life and reveals a deeper truth already living within you. Across ancient Egypt, Greece, India, Persia, and the hidden mystic paths of the world, initiation was never something granted from the outside. It was recognized, it was honored, it was mirrored through symbols and guided through experience, but it always began as an inner ignition, a shift in identity, a birth of clarity, a dissolving of illusions. And this ancient process continues today, uninterrupted. It appears in your challenges, your awakenings, your moments of stillness, and the subtle ways your perception evolves. If you look closely, you may discover that initiation has visited you many times, sometimes gently, sometimes dramatically, each time inviting you into a deeper relationship with your own consciousness. The true question is not whether initiation exists. The true question is whether you choose to answer it, because spiritual initiation is not about escaping life. It is about engaging with it from a higher vantage point. It is not about attaining mystical status. It is about remembering the part of you that has always been awake. It is not about joining a secret order. It is about reclaiming the inner order of your awareness. And now that you understand the real meaning of initiation, the path ahead becomes clearer. Observe your thresholds, listen to your intuition, honor your symbols, embrace your trials, and integrate your revelations. This is the journey of the initiate, ancient, timeless, ongoing. If this exploration stirred something within you, if it illuminated a forgotten corner of your inner world, share your experience in the comments. Your voice may reflect the spark someone else needs to see their own initiation more clearly. And if you're ready to continue exploring the hidden architecture of consciousness, stay tuned. There are many more mysteries waiting to be unveiled. The journey continues inside you.